So hello and welcome to another coaching feedback video. I'm going to go through some clips that an archer sent in and give some feedback on these kind of key areas and how I think this archer could work on improving these. Now, before we get started, if you've got some videos and you'd like me to take a look at them in the same way, so if you want to send some clips over and have me do like a YouTube video like this, feel free to drop me an email, send me a message on social media, whatever, and we can definitely set that up. And this way a lot of people hopefully can benefit from kind of me giving some feedback on your technique, and then also seeing how you would improve and that kind of thing. So now let's get into the video. What I'm going to do here, there's quite a few clips, so you can see there's maybe 7 clips here. I've had a look through these already briefly to see some key areas already. What I want to do is play them through so you've had an opportunity to look at them, and then from that we'll also go through together on some key kind of areas on how this archer can improve. So let's play from here. Nice, so that's one shot from that angle. So as you're watching through these, see if you can identify some areas that you might recommend to change, and see if you can see how the archer would improve these as well. Nice. So already we're starting to get a picture of this archer's technique. A couple of things I really like. I mean, the first thing that I really like is the release. You can see this archer is really got a good idea of how to aggressively execute the release, and this is actually a thing that a lot of people don't have. So many people have a nice position at full draw, and then on release they're a bit soft, but this archer, I really like the release here. It's really nice and aggressive. Let's just look at one more from this angle. Nice. Now, overhead. This angle, I love getting an overhead angle. If you haven't used an overhead before, I definitely recommend it. You can see a lot from an overhead angle. Nice. Now we have this angle. Perfect, and I think this is the last angle here. It's kind of similar to some of the other ones we've seen. Nice. Right, so now we've seen all the clips, there's a kind of a few things that I want to go over. First of all, let's go back to the front view. That's always a good place to start. So as I mentioned in a previous video, I always look for posture. That's my first thing, is I always look for the posture. So here you can actually see the posture is generally really good in terms of if you draw a line through the floor and then up through the body, through the head, posture is really nice and good. That's what I like. Another thing I always look for is the stability of the body and the posture. So is there a lot of movement? Is there a lot of movement around when the archer's drawing, when the archer's releasing, that kind of thing? You can see in the videos, and I'm sure you noticed as well, the archer's very, very stable, which I really like. So through the shot, as the archer's coming up, the body is not moving a lot, is really nice. And then from this angle as well, you can see through the shot. You can see here, there's a tiny bit of movement, but really the body is very stable as the archer's drawing. Really, really stable, so I really like that. Again, like I said as well, the release I do really like. You can see the aggression, even from the back view, you can see the aggression of the release. There, really nice and punctual. It doesn't look like there's a big amount of collapse. We'll check in a minute if there's a micro collapse at all, but it looks good. So the first thing that jumps out at me and I know I spoke to, I have to make sure to, to get your name right. So it's Ankit Dav, I think, Ankit Dav Rao. So I think the first thing to mention is Ankit Dav spoke to me and messaged me on Instagram with these videos, and he said he's got a competition coming up soon. So that's something to bear in mind for the feedback as well. So with the feedback, the first thing that I would change, and also bearing in mind about the competition, this is a fairly easy, non-disruptive change, is the position of the bow. And what I mean by that is the position of the bow at the set here. So having the bow, I'll just put this to kind of bigger here, having the bow in front of you where the bow is resting on the ground like that is not great, because it makes your shoulders hunch over and it puts your hook hand and your bow hand in not a great position. So if I go back to the other scene here, so you can see with the bow there, you can see that because the bow is resting on the long rod on the ground, the limb is way past the leg here, and then the elbow is a little bit past the side of the body. It's a little bit kind of further back. There's a little bit of a gap of the body. You can see there's a gap here, and then the arm here is kind of almost straight down. So that's not an ideal position, and why that's not ideal is it's going to make it hard to set the pressure on the hook and the grip, get a consistent way of putting that in, and then it's also hard to then lift the bow from the floor. So what I'd recommend is either resting the bow tip on the foot and then lifting from there, or I think in this case, for Ankit, I think the better option would be to rest the bottom limb of the bow on the leg and then use that position to kind of take the bow from there as well. So I definitely recommend this in that case. Now, when you're doing this, there's a few kind of key areas to bear in mind, and I've mentioned this in a previous video as well, so I'll link that below on kind of how to do that. But what I definitely recommend with this is to make sure that you've got, ideally, the arm here, the bow arm, should be a little bit more out, and then the draw elbow here should be, basically 90 degrees or a little bit further forwards. So now I want to show you that, just so you can see. I want to show you that with a band. So I'm just going to angle this down. I'll just check that it's the kind of right place. I'll angle that down, and then I want to show you this position so you can see it. So with the position here, I want to make sure that you can see everything that you need to. So with this position here, as I mentioned in the video, you can, if you have the bow on the floor and you rest the long rod, you're going to be like this. So see how this arm is kind of straight down, and also this arm here was kind of back like this. So there's a gap here. You can see that gap clearly. So that makes it hard to set the hand in the grip, because you're almost doing this, and then the shoulder's a bit wonky, and then when you lift up, you're going to have to lift from a big amount. It's difficult. So instead of being here with the long rod on the ground, you want to be here. This is around about the position that you want. So draw arm is close to the side of the body. You can almost feel the bicep here just slightly against the pec muscle here. So you can see how there's no gap. So it may be like 90 degrees or slightly forward of 90 is a good place, like that, not like this. So that's the first thing, that's the first constraint. So somewhere around here. Then you can see the hand here is higher. So in this example here, my hand is level with my hip almost. So the hand and the hip line here is almost level. You can also go a bit higher like this, or depending on how you rest your bow, that will kind of dictate how you do that. You don't want this too much. It's a little bit too low. So I'd recommend resting the limb tip between the legs, and I'd recommend doing that so that you can just rest it there, have a position, put the hand in, and make sure everything's kind of correct there. On that note, when the archer is, and this is the reason, so the archer has to go from here to here, and then goes into lifting, but we don't really want that. We want to just start in one position and then just go from there. It's much simpler, there's much less movement to do. So that's the main thing I would do. And the reason this is quite an easy change, and it shouldn't disrupt the upcoming competition too much, is it's not really affecting the release or much of the drawing, and it's something you can consciously think about at the start of the shot, and you can take your time with. There's no time pressure in terms of, if you take ages doing your draw trying to check something, you're going to ruin the shot. But you can check this at the start, make sure everything is good, and then go from there. So that's a really kind of key aspect with that. And in a minute I'll show you with the bow as well, just to kind of show you exactly how you would do that. So now I just want to go into a couple of other key areas. So as I said, release is really good. I do like that. This view is good. What we can see from, I want to show you from this view, is the elbow is a tiny bit out of the line. So what I mean is the line through the bow here, you can see with the string, the elbow is a little bit outwards. So I would work on that long term, maybe not before the competition, but that's a long term area I'd work on. And you can almost see here, it looks like possibly the bow shoulder is still visible from this back angle. So ideally from this angle, you wouldn't see the bow shoulder, which would tell us that the line was better. So to check this, we can also check from this angle, and you'll be able to see that, in fact, as the archer, as Ankit is drawing here, you can see the shoulder just coming back a little bit, the bow shoulder, and maybe coming up slightly. Then if we scrub through, you can see it a bit more clearly. You can see here. So if you watch the bow shoulder here, if you watch this bow shoulder against the arrow, you can see as the expansion is happening. So the bow shoulder starts here and then expansion. See how the bow shoulder is coming up and back towards the body there. You can see that there. So what's happening basically is the bow shoulder is just collapsing a little bit because the line isn't as good as it could be. If we go to this video, this is where you can really see it. So this is like the ultimate confirmation of it. The other two angles you can see a little bit, and then this one is where it's really confirmed. So here, you can see as the archer comes up here, the line isn't quite good enough at this point, at the setup, and this point is then kind of maintained through the rest of the shot. So then at full draw, you can see if we drew a dot through the shoulders, there'd be one dot here, and then a dot through the hand. So it'd be a line going here, and then another line at a different angle here. So ideally we want one line going through this draw shoulder, this bow shoulder, and this bow hand pressure point. So at the moment, we've got a little bit of this, and we want to get a little bit more into line. So the way you would do this is work on getting a bit more alignment by setup. So what I mean by that is, on this point here, as the raising is happening, you just need to make sure to get a bit more alignment by this point. So here, by this point, the bow shoulder should be more into line, and the body should have rotated around a bit more to get that bow shoulder into line. Another point with that is it looks like the hand is slightly slipping off the left edge of the bow. So it looks like basically it's slipping that way, and there's not enough pressure through the thumb and direction through this thumb and on the pressure point of the bow. And that's also making the bow kind of slip off to the left and making the bow shoulder position a little bit weaker. So I definitely work on this area, and by doing this, that will really improve the elbow line through here as well. So that will improve that all together. So that would be the kind of next main area I'd work on. You'll be amazed if you just work on that. I don't want to give you kind of too many things to work on, but if you change the set position with the bow on the leg, and then you work on getting a bit more alignment there, those two changes will make a huge, huge impact. So I just want to keep it simple when giving you that feedback. Those two changes, I just focus on those, and you'll be amazed at the results, because getting into a better alignment will make your full draw position much, much stronger. And then you'll be able to expand much more cleanly, much more consistently, and then the release will be better. So finally, I just want to show you something on the bow shoulder, which will help with the alignment. So here, at this point, you can see, so what I want to show you basically with the bow shoulder is it's just a little bit high, and that makes getting enough alignment, as I mentioned in this video, getting this alignment as the rotation is happening. At this point in the shot, the bow shoulder is just a tiny bit high, and you can't really see it from this angle, but from this angle, if we go through here, from this angle you can see it's just a tiny bit high, the bow shoulder, and there's some weight being pulled onto the string already, so then it's going to be kind of high through the rest of the shot. So a little bit earlier on, as you're raising the bow, so about here, you need a little bit of feeling under the arm, a little bit of direction to make sure that the bow shoulder doesn't come up. So I want to show you that now. If I go to here, and I'll just angle this down. So you want to, at this point, what's happening is you're raising up a little bit. So you're coming up, and this is just raising, the shoulder is just raising slightly. So it's doing this. And then because that shoulder is raised, if I move this arm now, because that shoulder is a little bit raised, when you then try and rotate later on, it's kind of a little bit hard because it's a little bit raised. You can't get the full rotation. If it's a bit lower, you can come around a bit more. So what you need to do is, as you're lifting, maybe just about here, you need to feel like there's a slight engagement under the armpit area, under here. You need to feel there's a slight engagement and a slight gliding, slight pushing forwards of the shoulder. You're definitely not doing this, but it's just doing that. So the goal is to just see the shoulder moving like that. That's what we want. We don't want that. That's the difference there. So now if I do this with my left hand, my right hand, but I'll do it left-handed. If we go from this position here, if I do it with this hand, it's harder for me to do it because I haven't learnt it. You'll see naturally, I kind of just come up here. Naturally, my instinct is to do this. And you'll see the shoulder's high, and then when I get the line, it's too hard. But we want it to be there. So the feeling when I do that is feeling a little bit of tricep work and a little bit of engagement under the armpit area. So when I'm lifting, it's right about here, this point in the lift, that I need to just slightly direct using under the arm, the muscles of the armpit area. It's the serratus is the muscle. We just need to slightly push there. And now I just feel the scapula is gliding upwards. And now I can do that. So instead of this position, it's now lower. So that's the key thing that I would do there with the bow shoulder in order to get the alignment better from the other angles as well. So now, those are the main things that I wanted to show you there. And that's really, really key to work on those areas. Before the competition, I'd only do the set position that I mentioned, adjusting that. And then I'd work on it as a long-term thing. I'd definitely work on the alignment. I'd definitely use an overhead camera with a delay and work on that, and then I just work on the bow shoulder a bit here. But overall, I love your technique. It looks like you're really working hard on it, and it looks like you're really, getting some of the key areas, especially with the release. So I think that's really, really good. So now I just want to, before we finish off, I want to show you the set position a little bit more with the bow and show you how that would look. So finally, I've got the bow here and I want to show you the set position. So I'll angle this down so you can see. Now, what we want is we want the bow, instead of being like this with the long rod touching the floor, we want to rest the limb just here like that on the leg. So what we want is the limb is above the kneecap here, kind of resting on the meaty part of the leg here, the muscle on the front. So it's resting there. And then the tip of the limb, as you can see here, the tip of the limb is behind the upper part of the leg here. So it's just there. So that's the kind of key thing there. And what it's doing between those 2 points is it's almost wedged. So if you look at my fingers, I'm not really holding the bow very much. I'm not having to hold the weight of the bow in this position. I'm just kind of lightly resting it, and I can just rest there. What that position does is it allows us to just fingers on the string, hand in the grip, and then go from there. Now you'll see in that position, fingers, hand, it's actually a little bit high. So for me, I would go somewhere about here. And that place, for me, when I rest there, I can put my fingers on the string, hand in the grip, get the tension, and then raise from there. So that's what I would do. You need to play around with the exact height, because some people might want it higher, some people might want it lower. What you don't want is for it to slide, and you can see the tip of the limb there coming out from the back. You don't want that, because then you're kind of back to the original problem in the first place, where this arm is too straight, the bow is too much facing to the ground. So we want something probably around about here, and place the fingers on the string, hand in the grip. As a note, it's always going to be the fingers on the string first. So it's always going to be hook on the string, then the grip. So you always go fingers on the string, hand in the grip, and then set your tension a little bit, set the tension on the string, and then raise from there. The reason for that is if you don't, if you imagine you're in this position, and let me try and put my hand in the grip, the bow kind of just falls away. It's not really ideal. You can never get the bow in the grip before you have the tension this way, because you're just pushing the bow away, and it goes away, and you try and push in again, and it's just never ends. So you need to put the fingers on the string first, then you balance with the hand in the grip, and then you go from there. So I just wanted to show you that to make it a little bit more clear. So hopefully that's been useful for you, Ankit Yadav. I hope that's kind of cleared up a few areas on what you'd work on. And for everyone else watching, I hope it's been good as well to see what the key areas are and how you would work on these also in a non-disruptive way for the competition as well. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.